Listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very privileged and very thankful to have Dr. Jozelle M here with me today. She is a psychologist, post-traumatic recovery and growth coach, and an author. And I always like to start off just kind of getting to know who I'm talking to. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi, Kyle. It's good to be on. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
So, I am from the lovely island of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Eastern Caribbean. I'm not sure if you're familiar with where that is, but I normally tell persons once we get to Barbados, we are 30 minutes away. So you can get there pretty easily. Um, I am a simple young lady, I think. Very simple, love life, love people. I've dedicated my life really to helping others be at their best, and that is one of the things that I promote. I am a psychologist by profession, and I work with the Ministry of Health in my country and at the main hospital, which is the Milton Keaton Memorial Hospital. I work along with persons with various chronic illnesses, basically helping persons to cope with their diagnosis. The sad part of it is doing a lot of palliative care and therapy so that persons who are terminally ill to get into that preparation mode for what comes next. And as it relates to trauma recovery, I work along with women and men as well, domestic violence related rape cases, persons who have endured difficulties in their life. And in the Caribbean, we tend to have quite a lot of challenges as it relates to natural disasters, hurricanes, storms. We had a volcanic eruption last year, and so much has changed in people's life. And I am an author, and last year I had my second publication, making it as an Amazon bestseller. And I wrote a book surrounding resilience and really picking yourself up after whatever challenge you would have had in your life. So it is called Unstuck, creating your bounce back effect, because I do believe that nothing happens by chance. And every single thing has a purpose, and it is really important for us to figure out what that purpose is so that we can make the most of it and move forward.
Well, being that I've gone through quite a bit in my life, and that's one of the reasons why I want to help others, because I know there's a lot of people out there that have gone through similar or a lot worse. I was molested as a child, developed depression through the years, and a dependency problem on a lot of substances, anxiety, and PTSD from the experience. It took me, I guess I blocked it all out through my childhood and my early adult life. And then I hit my 40s, and I had a breakdown.
Okay.
Why do some people that it takes them so much of their life before they actually experience these problems?
You know what? Sometimes trauma can be normalized in the sense that when something traumatic happens, there are some persons who look at trauma as being something big, meaning like a natural disaster, terminal illness. But there are some things that are quite allostatic, which means it's an everyday part of your life that sometimes is overlooked and taken for granted. And the other thing is that when we have certain types of trauma in families, because it is so normative that it is something that probably your parents experience or a grandparent, and it becomes so like a daily routine that persons overlook it. And what tends to happen is that because our brain is so wired to either take flight or to fight. We get into that space of constantly trying to make sure that we are coping to move forward. We keep moving, but we are not dealing with the issues. Some persons have not recognized the challenges, and because everything is then packed together, it's almost like a volcanic eruption, that you have the lava and everything that is just nestled under the surface, and then eventually there becomes now that explosion where things begin to fall apart, so to speak. But it has always been there, and it is just a matter that persons sometimes need to take a moment to make sense of all that is happening, identify patterns, because that is one of the things I look for as well, that there are certain things that happens in cycles that you may have thought that, okay, I've gone past this, but then, like, take for instance women who end up dating the same guy with a different name, but the exact same personality, the exact same habits, because we are creatures of habits, and we are creatures of having that sense of comfort. So everything that feels normal, that feels like I've seen this before, I've been there before, we gravitate towards that, even when it is not healthy for us.
Now, this can apply to men and women,
Yeah.
but like I'm going to say my daughter, she has dated basically the same guy. And when it comes to family and friends, she has a very strong will, strong personality. You don't walk all over her. But then she gets in a relationship with one of these toxic men, and it's like they can just
Do it.
manipulate her into doing anything.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
why does that personality just shift like that?
Well, again, it goes back to what seems comfortable. And the thing is, when we are around family and friends and so on, it is a somewhat more of a mirror effect, so it becomes a bit more authentic, somewhat. So then these are persons who probably would see everything and know things about us, and we know about them as well. So the interaction becomes a bit more open and honest. When we are in relationships now, it is always that I want to give you the version of myself that I think you want to see. So it's a lot of impression management, impression formation, and you're trying now to make sure that I do what it takes to make this person feel happy and feel settled so that the relationship will last. And um, for some women as well, it's how they define love and how they define, um, feeling that sense of security or safety from a man. And if it means, therefore, that I have to be quiet or become subservient or submissive and stuff like that so that he can feel better in himself, then I'm willing to do that as my way of showing him how much I love him. But is that really a representation of love? It isn't, because persons should generally allow others to be at their very best. And if that is not happening, then we have a problem.
Oh, I can tell you, my first marriage, I couldn't be myself. I forgot who I was, and then
Yeah.
I got remarried, and my wife that I have now, she does bring out the best in me, which makes it easier for me to handle a lot of the traumas and things that I've gone through. Currently, I have a disease in my spine that
Mhm.
making the bone deteriorate,
Yeah.
and so was an active person. Uh, I worked hard most of my life, and then had to retire,
Hmm.
and now I'm disabled. I could have easily just withered away,
Yeah.
but because I have such a supportive wife, I feel like it's helping me to go on, and that I have a purpose, which is the show and to help others.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like I'm one of the lucky ones, and we have the answers within us, but some of us just don't. I guess they don't want to believe that they can go on.
Yeah.
Why is such a difference in personalities? One person can just take anything on, and somebody else just crumbles.
Yeah. But one of the things, even before I answer that, that is so important, and I'm so happy that you're now in a position where you have that support of your wife. We tend to overlook social support, family support. It is so significant and important in a, in anybody's life, that we have somebody that we can have as a go-to person, not just a professional that you can go and pay some money, go into an office and you lie on a couch or you just talk, but somebody who has that love connection, that it's not just about a financial thing, but this is somebody who is invested in making sure that you're in a good place. And there are a lot of things that would determine someone's ability to be resilient. And again, it goes back a lot to how they were socialized or how they were brought up, and the coping mechanisms that they would have been privy to by persons who are significant in their lives, because children growing up tend to become a lot like their parents in terms of coping with situations. So you may find that some persons may be exposed to the exact same trauma. One person says, you know what, this is not going to kill me, and the other person buckles. It could be that they have the social support. It could be that their faith, because for some persons, faith means a lot and it changes the perspective. And part of the thing that I am more interested in now is teaching persons about the concept of post-traumatic recovery and growing from your pain, because too often we have been hearing the notion of resilience, which is good, but to bounce back means naturally your mind is telling you to go back to something that existed before. But in a lot of the cases, when trauma happens, it changes us. We are no longer the same. So now you have to recover, and in recovering, you have to change the perspective. You have to change the approach. You have to create something new. We heard even throughout when persons, we spoke about COVID-19, there was this new term, the new normal,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that life has significantly changed for every single person globally. It means now that whatever exists now, we have to make a new meaning, we have to create a new reference point. And when we grow from something, it is not just putting it in perspective, but you start appreciating life in a different way. Because just as you said it there, that you could have buckled, but you didn't. You have a new lease on life. You're now putting even your challenge, your difficulty into good use, whereby now this platform helps other persons. And this is how we have to keep growing constantly. Is it easy? No. Because there are going to be days, I'm pretty sure you're going to wake up and you're going to feel like, yo, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in front of camera. I don't want to talk to anybody. And that's fine. That's fine too, because we have to be true to our feelings at different points. But at the same time, we don't stay there. We understand that, yes, I have to appreciate that I'm not at my best today, but tomorrow, let's try to be a bit better than where we were yesterday.
Oh, you have no idea sometimes, especially when I have those nights where I've gone through a lot of pain and I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
To get up and try to stay positive is so difficult at times. And I guess especially whenever I get those little messages from people saying thank you, your guest really helped me, and your words really helped me. That's a motivation to keep going. But
Mhm.
even someone who's trying to push positivity and inspiration, we kind of need that positivity and inspiration ourselves.
Exactly, exactly. We have to keep constantly keeping our minds in the right places, because one of the things that is so significant too is that we take in a lot of information through our senses. What we see, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell, what we touch, and all of these things can become triggers as well. So when I see something like, take for instance, patients come and you do your lab work, and you look at the labs and oh my God, you see some things there that makes you feel like, oh gosh, this is really bad. So your mind starts telling you like, oh, you know what, you're gonna die, you're this. it's bad, it's, everybody's going to forget about you, and all of these negative messaging. What we have to keep doing is reprocessing and making sure that we tell ourselves that, okay, I can rise above this. And rising above this does not necessarily mean that you're going to get up tomorrow and start a company or start a podcast. Rising tomorrow can simply mean I'm going to get out of bed, I'm going to take a shower. That's it. That's it. I'm gonna get out the house. I'm gonna sit on my porch, on my veranda, and I'm just gonna take in some fresh air. That's what it means. Like every day, there's an incremental step that we are making, and we are making it in a positive way.
I'll tell you, there are times that, I try not to wallow in my own pity, but when I turned 36, I had a heart attack, and then I found out I was diabetic and high blood pressure. My triglycerides were 1500. Um, I mean, just all these problems, and then it seems like as the years went on, it was one thing after another. I found out about my spine first when my neck, they had to do surgery on my neck,
Mhm.
and I was just constantly in pain, and the pain was going down to the bottom of my spine. And they went in, they did surgery on that. I got the nerve stimulator
Mhm.
put in not too long after that. They're telling me they want me to go in for more tests to do some possible more surgery, and it's starting to spread. Arthritis is kind of taking over.
Yeah.
And I think, why am I still even here at times?
Yeah.
But I can say that, my children, my grandkids, I want to live and be here for them, but they're here for me as well, and I
Yeah.
love spending time with them. But you've got a lot of people out there that are alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got to be a lot more difficult for them. And I also wanted to bring up a point, because you mentioned COVID-19. Are you having to deal with those patients who were
Yeah.
already feeling isolated, and then they were locked in and couldn't get out, and already separated again from people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have had quite a few cases here. At present, actually, we have 70 active cases in the country. Um, and it has been difficult because being in the Caribbean, we are small.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that sort of setup where everybody's in everybody's space, literally. It's a very communal type of lifestyle. So when persons are placed in quarantine and isolation, it's difficult. But the good thing is we had to repurpose and get persons to understand that even where you can physically see, if you can still remain in contact virtually. So we have the Zoom calls, we do what is necessary in that moment to try and keep the person strong mentally and emotionally to push through until they're able to get out of isolation and quarantine, and to give them something to fight for,
Yeah.
because sometimes when you are feeling really ill, and no one is around you, it tells you to shut down. But at that point, even when you're in the PPE, which means you put on all of the necessary gears and you go in on the COVID-19 ward, sometimes just to hold a patient's hand makes a difference because there's a connection there that says, okay, I'm here with you. It's not the normal what we're accustomed to. And regardless to what, I'm still going to be there to push you on because I want you to be better and I want you to heal.
I guess you, as a psychologist, had to learn new things, because this is a whole new deal
Yeah.
for most of us.
Hmm. Hmm.
That
Yeah, you have to try to think out of the box and be creative. And the thing is, even where I am here in St. Vincent, we from 2019 we had so many challenges, not just COVID-19, but then when we had the volcanic eruption. So imagine that we're in a small country that is 150 square kilometers. We have just about 107,000 persons living on the island, and we had to have persons separated because of COVID-19, and then the volcanic eruption where um, almost half of the country on both sides were disrupted and persons had to be in shelters. So you are in shelters, there's COVID-19, there's the quarantine, there's the isolation. Persons have lost all of their livelihood. They have lost every single thing, their homes, their crops, animals. Persons are worried that they're going to die because of COVID-19. You're worried that I'm going to die because of the volcanic eruption. So there are so many things at play. But what is important is, in that moment to get persons to figure out what do you have control over. Because too often our minds causes us to want to grab at everything, to fix everything. And then when it's outside of our control, then we feel the stress of feeling like I'm hopeless, I'm helpless. So when we start figuring out what can you manage today, what can you have control of today, then you take those days and you just simply do what is necessary and you get ahead. Because if we clump everything together, it becomes too overwhelming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not lying.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've had a problem with that I'm trying to fix is that focusing on the here and the now and not so much of what's
Yeah.
gone on in the past or what could possibly go on in the future. And I think that should be a class in school where we can teach kids to focus on just look what's ahead of you right now. Look what's going on around you. Look at nature, or when they say stop and smell the roses, you really should take that advice.
And stop, yeah. But I think the thing is too is that because life has become so competitive,
Hmm.
that we always want children to be pushing in terms of what is your future going to look like, what are you going to do, and it's a lot of stress even on little kids to try and figure out. You ask a 9-year old, what do you want to do when you're finished with school, when you grow up? I don't know. I just want to be an adult. I want to live. And persons look at them grimly like, okay, that doesn't seem like you have a lot of ambition. But the child is right. At that stage, you're still trying to figure out who you are. You're still trying to figure out what it is to be a child. But we
Hmm.
put so much pressure all the time. And even as adults, even when we have achieved certain things, we are always pushed to figure out what's next. So
Yeah.
one of the big things too in the Caribbean, and especially as a female, you get to a particular age and persons ask, when are you getting married? And then, if you haven't gotten married, they ask you after that, fine, okay, so now you're married, when are you gonna have the child? And if you have one child, when you're going to have the other child. So they're always pushing something else on you, and it becomes somewhat, very stressful. Okay,
Hmm.
so it's really important for individuals to know themselves. And I always stress this: know yourself to the extent that you know what you want for you, that you're comfortable in your skin, you're comfortable in your plans. So even when persons try to superimpose things, you can say to them, you know what, no, this doesn't work for me. That's not on my agenda. That's not an interest of mine, and be able to stand firmly on that.
It's like I've just finished one race. Let me catch my breath before I get ready for the next one.
Exactly. Exactly. It is always such a pressure constantly. And that's why we have so many persons living as overachievers and, that type A personality that is always on the go. But then the research has shown that a lot of these type of persons, you're susceptible now to heart attacks and strokes and all of these other things, because whilst we are pushing for that target point, a lot of times physically our bodies are taking a very bad beating.
Oh gosh. Well, with the whole thing with my spine, I'm trying to overcome that. And
Yeah.
I had just gotten my diabetes and everything else under control. And now I've been focusing on getting this better, that I've slipped on the other, and now I'm kind of regressed.
Yeah.
And I, I don't I want to focus on something and get it done, but I find it difficult. I find it very difficult. And I think that some of the medications have been a problem. Like there's some of the medications they put me on makes me gain weight.
Yeah, yeah. And then that becomes another issue.
There's another issue, and how can you take care of all these problems when you're being bombarded so much.
Yeah. So, normally I say to persons, which is most threatening?
Hmm.
That's the one that you have to definitely work on first. And it's like a constant juggling of different balls. And the aim is not necessarily to get 100% all the time, but at least be at a place where there isn't a deficit, so to speak, but there's a balance enough that you can manage. All
Mm.
right, because we will never ever probably get it all right at the same time, because that just simply says that we are searching deeply for perfection. And I tend to not subscribe to perfection, but I subscribe to excellence, because I believe excellence speaks more of what power you have to do your very best.
Mm.
And your best is your best. Nobody can critique your best. That's what you feel comfortable with. And when we start promoting that, as opposed to letting people know or people think that if you did not achieve a particular thing, that then you're less off, that you're inferior, that comparison is the thief of joy, because we tend to compare ourselves to so many different persons. I want to be like Kyle, and if I didn't measure up to being like Kyle, then I'm a failure. But who determines failure from success? It's the individual.
Hmm. Exactly. Now, for you, and I can imagine that with all you have to take on, you get overwhelmed yourself. I mean, you seem to be a very strong person, but I'm sure you need someone to lean on from time to time.
Oh, yes. Like in the last literally almost 10 years now, it has been one thing after the next in my life. 10 years since I was divorced. And that took me by surprise, because that saying literally that the rug was pulled from under me, because I didn't see it coming.
Mm.
And everybody's like, oh, you should have seen signs. No, I literally did not see the signs that would suggest that my marriage is going to end. But nonetheless, that happened. And about 2 years after that happened, my mom died. My mom was
Mm.
diagnosed with lung cancer, and in 8 months of her diagnosis, she passed away. And my mother was literally my rock. She was like my best friend. And, when that happened, I felt numb. I literally went into a shell. I was in a dark place for a while, because I could not begin to understand certain dynamics, because I grew up as a Christian, from the Christian faith. And my mom was, a pastor. And I would have seen instances where, my mom, through her ministry, that persons were healed and all of that good stuff. So I'm thinking, like, okay, who better for the Lord to heal than my mom? And that didn't happen. And I had to then get to the place of understanding that healing looks different for different people. Healing sometimes could be that all your physical ailments disappear, and it's fine that you're in perfectly good health in terms of everything is functional, there is no pain. But healing could also be emotional, psychological, and spiritual,
Mm.
you know. So I worked through that. I got back on my feet through the support of loved ones and, friends, and I reconnected again with my faith. But then, it wasn't about my dad died in 2018, which was 5 years after my my mom. Well, 4 years and some months actually, my dad passed away.
Mm.
And that again, literally, it's like a sucker punch to the stomach. Like literally, I was
Um,
down. And just this year, a few months ago, it's now probably 2 months, I buried my elder sister.
oh no.
Yeah, so it has been a difficult, trying time. And I typically drink my own Kool-Aid, meaning like the things I tell people to do, I practice it myself. And even in my book on stock, it's pretty much a lot about my own life experiences and giving tips in terms of how can you still get back on your feet? How can you push your head up so that you feel as if you're not drowning by all of the circumstances around you? And I just simply take the approach of one step at a time. That's all we can do, one
Yeah.
step at a time. And I also encourage persons to not be so um, cast down by your own troubles, that you are unable to see others and what they are also going through. Because one of the things that helps me too is, even as I'm helping others, I'm healing myself. You know, it gives you a renewed strength, a renewed push and drive. Again, I would not want to discount the difficulty because it's very hard. But at the same time, consistency makes a difference.
Well,
Being consistent with whatever you do.
first, I want to give you my sympathies for that, because I know when you lose family in a short period of time, it's difficult. My father ended his own life, and then a couple of years later, my brother did the same thing, and then right after that, my best friend. And, and to lose people was, you question God, you question your faith, all those things. I know I did. I stepped away from the church, and
Yeah,
it took me a while before I started getting my relationship back with God. I
yeah,
mean, he was always there. I'm the one that stepped away.
yeah. That's true. That's so significant, is that God is always there. He doesn't move. He's there, you know, and it's just that we sometimes have to get back, figure out what is needed in that moment and get back to him. And he's always there with welcome arms, you know.
Yes. Everything happens for a reason.
Mhm.
We go through what we go through, and there's some kind of purpose behind it. I think I went through what I went through so I could help others. And
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough that I had a support around me,
Hmm.
and there's people out there that don't, or feel like they don't.
Yeah.
I also want to commend you for your strength. I know how difficult it is. You you want to help others, and yet you're going through so much in your own life, and
Yeah.
but I commend you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. But I mean, I always say to people that I look better than what I've been through. And, you know, I try to utilize a lot of things to help me cope, like exercise. I do a lot of that. I dance. I like to, you know, I'm in the Caribbean, so we have the luxury of the beaches and the mountain tops. And sometimes you just need to retreat and go and take a moment by yourself and just simply regroup, you know. Meditation works really well. There's
Oh
some
yeah.
persons who practice yoga. I try not to do things in excessive ways, like even, you know, the overeating, drinking and stuff like that, because obviously, again, everything we do comes back. There's always a backlash in terms of the consequences. So I try to keep things as balanced as possible. And you know, I am true to myself. So on those days when I know it's definitely not a good day, then I don't necessarily pretend, but I let persons who are trusted in to know, like, okay, I'm having a rough one today. This is a rough patch for me, so that I know exactly when I need to lean on others. And one of the things I say to persons all the time, that we have to constantly be checking our support system, because sometimes we may think that we are good, you know, sometimes you have persons there and we're thinking, okay, yeah, they're always going to be there. But then when you really need them, they're not really counted in terms of their presence. So, you know, constantly check, you know, make sure that everything is okay and everybody's fine in terms of the relationship that you have, because when you really need it, you know, that's a difficult time for it to fall through, that you say, well, oh gosh, where is Kyle? He's not here. He's not answering my calls. You know? Yeah. So you definitely want to make sure that there is that level of connection in your life with other persons.
I know meditation has helped me so much,
Yeah.
especially with the anxiety and the
Hmm.
PTSD.
Yeah.
I used to have to take medication for it, and the meditation has helped me to overcome even taking all those medications.
Yeah.
Now, I have to stress, I'm not a doctor. This is just what worked for me. So consult your doctor before you do anything like
Yeah.
that. But you know, my like once again, my kids, my grandkids,
Mhm.
and my vegetable garden. Yeah,
Oh, that is so therapeutic. So
very.
therapeutic. Yes, yes. And you know what you said earlier about living in the moment, mindfulness, being aware of, what works and what does not work. And
Hmm.
it's so important for us to know our triggers, because sometimes we are so absorbed with everything else that we are not tapping in, so that I know when something feels off. And right away before it gets out of hand, you try to pull that back in quickly. But
Hmm.
sometimes because we are not spending that moment with ourselves to actually check in and to pay attention to all of the changes going on, most times when we figure it out is when the trigger has taken a toll, that we are now spiraling out of control on some level. So it's so important to, check in with yourself and be true and honest with yourself.
Oh, yeah. That's one reason why I quit drinking. I know how I am. I get started, I can't stop,
Yeah.
and it really takes away from you feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was one of the problems I had when I lost my little brother, is that I immediately went to drinking again and getting back into the drugs. I mean, cocaine was my friend during that time, and
Yeah.
I didn't allow myself to feel. And
But that's
so,
it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and even now it's, 20, almost 22 years later, and I'm still, there'll be days when I start thinking about it and I break down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important not to avoid the pain,
Hmm.
but to be able to navigate through it or push through it. And I always liken it to a woman in labor that, a lot of times the pain is excruciating. I don't have a child, but I've been in the maternity ward so often that I feel like I've been through labor. but the nurses, the midwives always say, push through the pain, push through the pain. You have to use the pain, use the pain. We want to avoid it because pain is not pleasant. But even in those moments, you still have to feel what you need to feel and cry if you must, stop if you must. But even after doing all of that, reprocess it. Reprocess it in a meaningful way to say that this is for a reason. There is something that I need to see through all of this. There is something that is going to be birthed on the other end. So even when you push through the contractions, a baby comes. So there is something there, and we just have to be open enough to realize what is on the other side of this pain.
Now that you've mentioned labor and all that, do you care for the people that lose children during that time?
Yeah, yeah.
How do you help them cope with that? Because I know when I lost 5 children before my daughter was born,
Mhm.
and I wonder if that was not a contributing factor to why our marriage fell apart.
Could be because one of the things that we see a lot is that couples, I'm not sure there, but a lot here is that couples don't grieve together. So even when you lose a baby, both are probably trying to buffer the pain for the next person. So I've heard fathers saying that, oh, I have to be strong for her. So I'm not crying. I don't want to talk about it so that she will feel any sort of way. And what is happening there is she's processing this to think that he's uncaring and he is going on with life, but he's trying to be strong and, trying to toughen up for her, but
Mm.
she's seeing it as a disconnect. And one of the things I always tell couples, especially, grieve together. Don't leave each other in the sidelines. Speak about what is happening. And if you feel that you do not yet have the words, just simply be around each other helps in terms of how you navigate the different feelings that you have. Um, Sometimes when persons are grieving, they isolate a lot, they pull away, and the next person reads that and thinking that, oh, I'm being blamed for this, or I'm being, they feel a sense of shame and so on, because too, society or communities can be difficult in terms of how they deal with women who are either infertile or have had miscarriages. So we have to teach a lot in terms of sensitivity and letting persons have that moment that they can actually go through the pain of what they have just lost. One of the things I also stress is that based on the stage of your miscarriage, how early in the pregnancy you miscarried, some women want to probably avoid acknowledging that they actually had a baby, and that does not necessarily grant closure. So, what is important is for them to also acknowledge that I was a parent. I did have a child. I did carry a baby. I did carry a fetus. It may not have come to term, but at the same time, when you are connected in that way, that you said, I had the gift of life within me, then now you're able to actually acknowledge that, okay, this is something I've lost, and go through the stages of grief and understand that it's a process, not something to be rushed, but it's a process that you have to go through. And eventually, day by day, it's going to get a bit easier, but you have to face the pain. You just simply can't brush it under the rug as if it never happened.
Yeah, that it's difficult. I imagine it probably sounds like I've been through everything under the sun,
Yeah.
but these are things that have happened to me and my family, and I know somebody out there has got to have gone through a lot of the same things I have.
Yeah.
Now, of all the patients that you've had, is there any one particular case that maybe sticks out above the rest?
I think in terms of all of the different types of illnesses I've worked with, cancer patients, um, definitely they go deeper into my heart. And the reason is both my parents had cancer.
Mm.
So I think it resonates on that personal level, as well as where I'm at in the success rate or the remission, we don't see a lot of it. So when somebody is diagnosed with cancer, before you know it, it becomes stage 4, and the person is now at a point where they are preparing to die, palliative care. So it really takes a toll on me. And outside of my own family, I've lost so many other persons. One of the things that I have done since losing my mom, I started a cancer foundation here in St. Vincent, and it is to provide not just emotional, psychological support and education, but rather financial support for persons who can't get access to certain things here in St. Vincent, that you can actually get treatments abroad. And so many patients have passed over the last 10 years, and it is something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I still, sometimes I feel like I want to give up because it's too much pain to watch all the time, but still somebody has to do it. So definitely cancer patients um take a toll on me, and children. There's one particular child who I grew very close to, and she had um, sarcoma. She was, how old was she when she died? She was 13.
Oh,
And she was a fighter. She was such a trooper throughout her chemo treatments and her she had to do an amputation, and she was such a trooper. She went to her graduation on crutches, and she was hopping around. She lost all her hair, and she put on the little wig, and she says, I'm pretty. I said, you are beautiful. And when she died, it literally hit me to my core, as if she was like my child. So it's a difficult space to be in, but at the same time, I think of it from the standpoint that, as you said, there are some persons who go through these things by themselves, and I can't imagine what it would be like to die alone. So when I can extend a hand or a hug, or just let somebody know that I'm here with you, then I feel that's a fulfillment right there.
well, as important as it is to talk about all these things that people go through, and there's that negative side of this is happening.
Yeah.
I think it's just as important to talk about the triumphs. So are
Yeah.
there some cases that you could talk about that were just, they really came through
Mhm.
just
But
remarkably?
Yeah, I mean, in on different levels. Like when I went through my divorce, I started a support group as well for women from broken relationships. And I am so happy that coming out of that support group, it was a small group. It was about 5 or 6 ladies, and 3 of them are now married, and they found love. So that's a triumph, definitely, that that persons was still able to get that happy ending. um there are some cancer patients that we are able very early to diagnose and to catch, and they got to go overseas to get certain treatments, and some doctors came into the island at the precise time. Like there's this particular child who came into the hospital, and he had um, a lot of headaches, and they discovered he had a tumor in the brain. And luckily, or miraculously, however you want to term it, is that there was a mission coming from the States, and the mission included a neurologist and a neurosurgeon, and they were able to see him, and they did the procedure, they did the surgery on him, and he is perfectly fine right now, and he is just 15 years old.
Wow.
So we do have some triumphs. Women from domestic violence situations who are able to pick themselves up. They are taking care of themselves, their children. They have gone back to school. There are a lot of triumphs. There are a lot of victories, and moments to smile and to celebrate. And you are so right that we need to probably, speak more of the triumphs as well. Not to negate the difficult times, but to show persons that definitely there is a silver lining, and there is a light at the end of all of this darkness.
Yes, for sure. That's the, like I say, the purpose of the show is to bring some hope and inspiration, motivation, that there is a positive side to all this. We just have to believe that it's there.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and keep pushing for it. Keep pushing.
Now, do you find that men are the least likely to look for help when they need it?
Yes, and I think that depends a lot on how, men are typically socialized. Generally, men are told to be tough. Boys,
Mm.
don't cry, toughen up, don't be a wimp, don't be, and so men, when things are going on, they hold it in. And the other thing is that for a lot of guys, the avoidance is what works best. What I don't know won't hurt me, so I don't want to find out. So that's why when we even check and we look at the clinics in the hospital, most are women coming for checkups and coming to make sure that everything is fine. And you speak to the men, and it's like, oh, what I don't know, I prefer not to know, because I can't handle it if I know that this is happening. And we stress all the time, early diagnosis is what save lives. So it's really a re-education process all the time with males, to let them understand that you need to come and check in. You need to make sure that you're on top of things in terms of your education, your information. Um, Generally, from a mental health standpoint, men typically don't like to talk much about what's going on with them as well. Um, but I think the tide is changing somewhat, because now mental health is not as stigmatized as it used to be. And persons are now understanding more so that it is important for us to promote mental wellness, which is the preservation of your mental health, and making sure that you're doing what is necessary to avoid a mental illness or a mental disorder. So putting in the work up front, like I'm not sure what's going on. I feel like I'm getting a bit aggressive too often. Let me talk about this. Let me figure out what is happening, so I can put my finger on it. When we have men now who are probably more inclined towards communicating rather than just being quiet, because that's another thing in relationships. Some men are very quiet, while women are always, we are the chatterboxes. We say a lot. So men are now, I think, especially where I'm at here, you see a lot of men are taking more forums where they're actually speaking up about certain things that has been affecting them over the years.
I'm an open book, and
Yeah.
I am, because I want men and women alike to know, if you need help, go get it.
That's
I'm
right.
not afraid to talk about things that I've gone through, because I want to be able to relate to someone who's gone through the same thing. I spent a couple weeks in a mental hospital. I'm not ashamed to say that. But
Yeah.
if I hadn't, I probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So definitely go get the help you need. Talk to someone. You know, you
Yeah.
may, yeah, even if it's a friend or a family member, they may be able to get you to someone who can help you even further, like Dr. Miller here. And do you have a website?
Yes. My business is actually called the Valeo Experience. Um, Valeo is a Latin word for wellness. So it is www.thevaleoexperience.com.
Okay.
Okay. And you can find me on Facebook. I normally do every morning on Facebook around 7 my time. I don't know what time it is there, but 7 a.m. my time. I usually do a daily tip on Facebook where, just general things about life and how we can navigate life. And you can find me at the Valeo Experience or Jozelle Miller. Um, yeah, I'm also on Instagram, which is Valeo SVG as well.
I'm going to put all those links up in the description so people can just click on it and go straight to it. But is there anything else you'd like to mention before we end the show?
I think one of the things I want anybody to leave with is understanding the power of your thoughts. It's so important that we keep a good handle on what we are thinking about and understand that your diet is not just simply about what we eat, but it's also what we mentally take in as well. It really affects our overall psyche. And there was this particular quotation by Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and it says that your thoughts becomes your words become your actions become habits, and your habits determines your character. So it's so important that we understand, fix the mind, and a lot of the other things falls into place.
And I'm assuming if people want to buy your book, they can get that at the website.
Yeah, and it's on Amazon. So once you type in my name on Amazon, Unstuck, creating the bounce back effect, it's there as well. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure I put all that in the description and make it easy for folks. But Dr. Miller, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a
Uh,
pleasure.
and if you have another book come out or anything else that you'd like to promote, please let me know. I'd love to help.
For sure, for sure.
Well, besides having you and thanking you, I want to thank all the people out there. If you are new to the channel, I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope you'll come back. Please subscribe. For those of you who are my regulars, thank you for that support. It's because of you I get to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network